Stampers, Kim from stampingimperfection.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a card I want to make, and this is with 7 Kids Craft Store Birthday Fairies stamp set. I haven't had the chance to use this yet because I've been so busy playing with the other 3 stamps that were released in early August that now I want to play with this. And I have a sketch that I need to create a card with for the Papercraft Crew challenge this week. So I thought that I would use my slimline die, and I have this slimline die from Whimsy Stamps, and this is called the Slimline Card Builder die, and I could use it exactly like this and it would cut out these 3 shapes, but I really just want the background for this one. So I'm going to snip off the center things, and I'll leave them connected together for now because I don't think I might use, maybe I'll use the square, but for now I'm just going to use the background one. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll put these back in here. This is an extra large Avery L plastic sleeve, by the way. I get them in packages of like 50. I really like those for storing my stamps and dies. And I have 4 slimline dies, so I have those all in here. So I want to do some ink blending, and I want to create my own background because I love it when stamp sets have little images like that. You can do so many things with it. I want to create my own background, and then I want to do some ink blending. And I'm going to take a piece of this Bristol paper, and this is just a package of Canson extra large Bristol paper, and it's one of those that I got from Michael's when they had buy one get one 50% off or buy one get one free. So I always wait till there are sales like that. It's basically 100-pound cardstock, but it's super smooth, and it's my favorite color, or my favorite cardstock to blend on. So I am just going to trim this down so it's a little wider than this slimline die. And the slimline die is, it looks like it's about, it actually looks like it's 3 3/8 or so. That's a very imprecise measurement. So I'm going to cut this at 3.5. I want to use my Versamark. I have my big tub of white embossing powder. I got a whole bunch of embossing powder on clearance and dumped it all in this tub, and I love this. This is just a Storal Solutions tub that I got in the kitchen section of the grocery store, and I like it because it latches. It's got these things on the side, so it closes up nice and snugly. And I have a little sundae spoon attached to the lid that I got from the clearance bin at Michael's. I got a package of like 20 of those little spoons for like $1 or $2. It was very inexpensive. So I'm just going to take a clear block, and I'm going to take these 2 little stamps. I'm just going to put those down on my clear block. Just like that. I will use my embossing buddy, and I'm super allergic to, actually, I want the smoothest side of this paper. I'm allergic to the powder, so I want to be pretty careful, so I'm trying not to touch it. And then I'm just going to stamp these all around my paper. And try to go off the edges on some parts. Basically, I'm making my own pattern paper, and I'm going to heat set it in white embossing powder And then when I do some ink blending on the top, these flowers and what looks like grapes, I think they're like little grapes or something like that, will show up beautifully. Okay, so I'm just going to take this flip it over and do the other side. Make sure I get all the little images. Give it a good look over. Make sure I got embossing powder on all the parts. And that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to close this up so I don't dump it all over my desk. And then I have to plug in my heat gun, and then I'm going to heat set this with my heat tool. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so now I'm going to take, I have a couple different pinks. I'm going to start with this light one. For some reason I'm in the mood with pink. And hopefully this ink pad should be freshly inked, so we'll see. So I'm just going to blend over the top of this. This is pretty. This is called Pink Diamond, but it's almost like a rosy pink. And this is my Altenew ink, and it is a dye ink. I love dye inks because they're reactive with water. They blend beautifully, and I love the Altenew inks because the colors are just gorgeous, and they sell them in sets of 4 inks, so you get a light, another, a second, like you get 4 shades of the same color, so the 4 inks all blend together beautifully and layer, and it's wonderful. Now I'm just using one color on this. I pulled out the second one in case this was too light, but I really like this color. Okay, and I'm just using my blender brush. This is my Picket Fence, or Picket Fence, I think it's called, blender brush, and that's going to be my so I've essentially created my very own unique background paper. Okay, now keep in mind the ink is wet, so you do need to give your ink time to dry. You want to be careful with your fingers. I stamped my images. I decided to use the little girl with the birthday cake, and I really love this garland, so I'd like to use that. And then I stamped 3 of the sentiments because the sketch calls for 3 sentiment strips. So I'm going to cut these out, and I think I'm going to attempt to use my Brother Scan and Cut for the girl and for the garland. And I'm also going to die cut out my background paper with the slimline die. I'm just going to put some embossing or some washi tape here, and then I'm going to take this over to my Gemini Junior. I'm going to cut all this stuff out. Okay, so I did stamp my images I used this Obsidian Pigment Ink because I really like it. It's an exceptionally crisp ink, so it's great for those little sentiments. So I've stamped 3 sentiments because the sketch I'm using is calling for that. So I just need to color these two images in. I've also die cut my background, and it gives this little stitch detail, which I don't know how well you can see, but there is a little stitch detail there, and I really like that color. I've also created my card base. I cut this at 7 by 8.5. I scored it at 3.5. And I don't know what this cardstock is because it's super sparkly. And when I put it down on my mat, it got kind of, I forgot to clean up my mat after ink blending. So I'm going to use that as the front because it'll be covered. And I'm thinking that I might use, I pulled out one of the inks that coordinates with the pink diamond. It's called Pinkalicious. And I think I might actually do a darker pink around the edge. I'll think about that. But first I'm going to color these in. And again, I'm going to use my Altenew inks. And I'm going to just pull out 3 of the greens. So I'm going to speed this part up just because it's not a coloring video and I'm sure you don't want to watch the painstaking process. So I am basically using my Altenew artist markers, which are alcohol markers, and I'm choosing to use them because they come in coordinated sets. So set A, which is what I'm pulling these from, has 3 greens that layer together and blend together beautifully. So I started with the darkest green, and then I did the medium green, and I just did the darkest green in the 2 corners and along the top. Then I went over that with the medium green and then made that a little bit wider. And I'll take the lightest green, go over the edge of my medium green, and then fill in the rest. And that is that. I'm going to keep it that simple, and I'm not going to go back and forth over it. It's just a little spot. Now, I die cut these before I colored them, which makes it a little bit cumbersome to color because I had not used, this is the first time I've used my brother's Scan and Cut to actually cut out images. Very simple to use. And I did not want to do all the coloring and then cut it out and mess it up and have to recolor. So I decided I would color first. So I'm using blues from set A, and again, I started with the dark and I did the dark down each pleat basically. Then I went over it with one of the medium colors, and then I colored the center with the lightest color and went over the medium color edges just to make it look like it had some flow to it, some, depth. And I'm going to use the chocolates, and the chocolates are actually in set D. And these are what I use for the flesh tones. So it's hard to get. You can get it like 2 or 3 different flesh tones, but if you're really serious about doing alcohol marker coloring, you would definitely want to get a set of flesh tones so you can do the whole spectrum of different flesh tones. Because it's pretty fun to experiment with the different colors. So when I use my Copics, I have a lot of options, and I like that when I'm doing faces especially. So I pulled out another set. This is set D, and this is the same one I got the browns from for the face. And I'm just using some of these purpley pinks. I'm just using a couple of them. These are small little spots, so I don't want to agonize over shading and shadows. I just colored all the flowers in with the light pink, and then I added some of the dark red around the center, and I'm just going to use the lightest green or one of the greens that was probably the medium one, color in all the leaves around there, and the yellow is for the center of the flowers. Then I'm coloring in the grapes, and I'm using the deepest purpley pink color, and I'm just putting a line on each grape and then filling each grape in with one of the lighter shades. So I'm just pulling out an orange and a yellow from my primary set and doing the flame, and then I'm making sure I get all those leaves. There's a lot of little leaves in there, and I'm going to pull out a couple of the grays, and part of me that I keep reaching in front of me. That's where my markers are actually. And I'm just putting a little of the WG01. This is a warm gray along the edges and underneath that frosting layer, just so it looks like a vanilla frosting cake. And you do need the gray there to just give it a little bit of dimension. Now I'm using those purpley pinks again for the the like cake pan. It looks like flower petals to me, and I'm adding just a little bit of dark and then going over it with the light again. There's not much of them showing, so I'm just, adding a little bit of color there. And then I'm just going to finish up her hair and do her wings. I'm doing her wings in the lightest blue from set A, and then I'm going to add some dark blue dots and some dark red dots, and then I'm going to pull out my white gel pen and add a bunch of white gel pen dots, because it sort of makes her wing look like it's sparkling when you see it from in a photo or when you are holding onto the card. So I'm attempting to make her hair like a dark black color, and I don't like how I did this at all. So I started with the TG07, then the TG03. I just did a few flicks. It's very small. What I wish I'd done instead is I wish I'd done dots and stippled the hair, so it would have given the hair more texture, because I ended up like doing the dots in the end anyway, and if I had just started out that way, I would have been much happier with how her hair looks. So I'm just going back through now and just doing dots, and you just fill in. I usually start with the darkest one and do a few dark ones, then the medium one and do more medium dots, and then the light one to cover in all the excess and go over the other dots, so it kind of blends them together when you do that, and it makes her hair look textured and sort of curly, and I like the effect when I do it from the beginning. But I was trying to like just treat it like hair, but it's just such a tiny spot. So I try not to be too fussy when I'm dealing with tiny spots like this. So that's going to finish up all the coloring. I'm just going to cut those sentiments apart and get the rest of my stuff together. Alright, so to complete my card, I have just cut a little blue rectangle. It is about 1.5 by 2 3/4 inches. It's just a scrap piece of paper. And then I used the little square die, this one, from the slimline die to cut out a piece of vellum. And I'm going to attach that on the top, and I'm just going to use a little drop of glue because I'm going to be putting the little fairy on top of this, and I need a little part of that square to go off the left side and a little to go off the right side, just like that. To go along with that sketch. Then I'm going to, I've got sticky tape on the back of this. And I think I'm going to leave my card front white. I just want to keep it light and simple. So I'm going to try to center this here. Pull this off. I'll pull this off. So pretty. I love it. I'm going to turn mine this way, actually. And then I'll take this off, and this goes like this. I'll pop the fairy up. I put a bunch of dots on the back of her. So I'm going to pop her up on that vellum. Just like that. And then I've got 4 sentiments, and I've got the little... just trying to decide whether I want to put it next to her or whether I want to put it all the way up the page. And I think I'm going to put it down next to it. Let's see, I need to use all 4 of these, and I'm just going to put these down. So it says, wishing you a sparkly day. Just like that. And of course, it needs some magical sequins. So it needs some really sparkly sequins. I've got these Studio Cadia. These are their Crystal Fusion sequins, and they are just fantastic colors. And so, my friends, that's going to complete my card. So I've got lots of sparkly. I love those fusion sequins from Studio Cadia. I think they're just gorgeous. So that's going to complete my card, and that is the Birthday Fairies stamp set from 7 Kids Cards. I'll put all the 7 Kids links below, and you can see I used the little stamps on the set to make my own patterned background paper, and I used a slimline die from Whimsy Stamps, which is the slimline card builder set, and I used this week's Papercraft Crew card sketch to make my little image, and Altenew markers to actually color the image in, the little fairy image. And that is that. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already subscribed. Make sure you click the bell to get notifications every time I upload a new video, which I'm trying to do multiple times a week. And stop on my blog at stampingimperfection.com. Thank you so much for watching.